Welcome to Neurosalience, the OHBM podcast.
Welcome to the Organization for Human Brain Mapping Neurosalience podcast. I'm Peter Banatini, and today we have a special podcast as a preview of the OHBM 2024 in Seoul, South Korea, coming up in June 23rd to June 27th. And in this podcast, we just preview the meeting. We hit some of the highlights. We talk about how the meeting's changing, growing, how the community's changing and growing. Our guests today are Sofie Valk, who is the chair of the Education Committee. She's a group leader of the Otto Hahn group on cognitive neurogenetics at the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig. We also have Kevin Sitek, who is the chair of ComCom, Communications Committee. And he's the assistant professor in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders at Northwestern University. And also Hae-Jeong Park, who is the chair of the local organizing committee. And he's a professor of nuclear medicine at Yonsei University College of Medicine in South Korea, and also in the Department of Radiology and Psychiatry, Biomedical Science and Engineering. He's the mayor of his graduate school, and which is in Yonsei University Medical Sciences Department. Yeah, so today we pretty much go over all the aspects of the meeting, from the education courses in the first day to the oral sessions to the symposia. We talk a little bit about the keynotes, the Talairach Lecture, which is the lecture for the prominent outside person coming in. We hit some of the highlights about also the roundtables that are occurring and what a roundtable actually is. We also talk about the social events, the special events, the awards, and the hackathon, and a little bit about Korea, so Seoul itself. So a lot of content, useful things just to sort of prime you or inform you as you plan to come to OHBM and join about 3,000 other scientists from around the world as we converge to talk about our latest work and other things. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. And today, this is sort of a special podcast. It's a preview to OHBM 2024 in Seoul, South Korea. So as Hae-Jeong actually reminded me, this is the 30th anniversary of OHBM. So it started in 95 in Paris, and this is 30 years of OHBM. And the first meeting was really cool because, fMRI was just in its infancy, like there was 2 years old, but it was already kind of super exciting and redefining the whole field. And it sort of grew from, a number of things, but Peter Fox used to have an annual meeting, and there's some scattered meetings around, and we're like, okay, let's just have a meeting for just brain mapping, and that's international. And yeah, it was really cool. I mean, but I think as a postdoc, I think sometimes over time one's perspective grows, and I felt like, oh, okay, this is another meeting. It's a big meeting. I was just starting my postdoc, and I was just like, I'm too busy, just got to work. And I don't know why I thought that. That was sort of, and it's interesting how impressions change. I went to the next meeting in Boston, but yeah, I missed that first meeting. And I heard it was like 500 people, and it was all very seat of the pans. We didn't get a company to organize the meeting until Brighton, which was like 2000, 2001, something like that. And so, but yeah, so what are your general impressions?
I think one of the aims also has been over the past year to make it also more diverse and inclusive in terms of also speakers, and kind of make sure that it's not just an in-crowd, right? But be sure that this is also for everyone who wants to brain map. And I think this is one of the ongoing challenges also in this widely divergent field, right? Like some people like use deep learning, and other are more about psychology frameworks. That not that this excludes deep learning, but for example, they're more into task fMRI, and others are more into histology, right? So it's very broad, and as you say, the end of people participating has been growing, and now it's somewhere between 2 and 3,000 every year, depending a bit on where.
Yeah.
Peter noted as a postdoc, he didn't feel like he had time for it, but now I think most of our attendees are students and postdocs. So it's actually, a really great place for students and postdocs and other early career professionals to come and meet people and hear about all the cool science going on in human brain mapping. So it's really taken on this very supportive role for the entire community. And I think that really helps us expand our efforts, like Sofie was mentioning, about diversifying our speakers, where they're from, what they're talking about, making sure that we're like interfacing with other fields and staying on top of the social and cultural aspects of science that we need to be doing to make sure we're doing the best science possible and including the most scientific voices. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to emphasize both your points, I think that, yeah, I remember going to the meeting in, I think it was in Italy, where there was just a general poll of the audience at the opening ceremonies, like how many people is it your first meeting? And half the audience, it was their first meeting, which was incredible. It's a lot of new people, a lot of students. You're right, and my impression is there's a lot of people. I get the impression that it's becoming more inclusive, without a doubt, and also more diverse in terms of modalities and questions asked, but also a lot of people actually are. There's a little bit of a shift towards analysis, data sets, big data. A lot of people actually are more focused on that and drawing inferences from that. Not everyone, obviously, but I guess I get the impression that there's less data collection and more analysis or reanalysis of large data sets, which is good in many ways. I'm still sort of like a old school, like to collect my data, but there's still, I mean, this meeting was sort of set up to purposely be at the interface of methods and applications. So it's like a method. It's not like a methods in itself meeting, but it's like at the interface of methods and applications. So here's where you learn how to use the methods towards the applications. And
Yeah, I think also, like, I don't know, looking at us or what we also quickly discussed, like more and more people have grown up with OHBM, like gone there as their first conference, and now like they're more the senior people. And I think that obviously is also like a natural given that it's now 30 years, right? It's more obvious that people have returned and were there maybe already as a PhD, or I had even a high school student from my lab visiting last year with their parents. So she had great potential. She keeps coming to be like, it's for some people with the company, like their whole career is like, and also their friend circle in science is like very made by OHBM, right? It's kind of a traveling
yeah,
family, or friend. I don't know whether it's
yeah,
friends or
yeah,
family.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. I get that impression. It's very much feels like a much more of a family. You feel like you get to know everyone after coming. My feeling is after going for like about 5 to 10 years, everyone ends up kind of knowing everyone else in some way, and it's really nice. I mean, talk about doing network analysis. I mean, you could do a whole network analysis on the OHBM community where it's at some point it gets sort of like in a state where information passes very easily, and you really feel like you're at the axis of something here. All right, well, we'll get into some of the details of the meeting itself, and it's good to go over because it's funny because as it evolved over the years, there's always been certain basic things. It's always been about education as well, and there's still a prominent education course on the first day, and there's certain traditions that have sort of been solidified, and there's certain things that are growing incredibly rapidly, which we'll talk about. But just to begin, the whole meeting planning process, most people don't even know how meetings are decided. Council gets bids from various local organizing committees, and then the company takes over and sort of researches everything, and so Hae-Jeong,
Yes,
how did OHBM come about to be in Seoul?
it's very long story.
Okay, right. Well,
Um,
maybe hit the abridged version.
okay, okay. Actually, I started attending the OHM meeting in 2001, Brighton, UK, and Korean Society for Human Brain Mapping, KHBM, was started at the 2002, right after the Sendai meeting in Japan. So from the beginning, so we tried to host OHBM meeting in Korea because at the time there's no brain mapping research groups in Korea at the time. So we hope to promote human brain mapping research in Korea. But in 2005, actually 20 years ago, we decided to hold 2012 meetings, but it went to Beijing. And 2016, we also applied for 2016, but we thought that it was a certainty in Seoul, but it went to Hawaii. And we finally won the bid in 2018, but unfortunately, the geographical tensions, political tensions. So it was canceled. And then 2021, we actually expected to host the OHBM meeting in Seoul, but the COVID-19 pandemic, it was also postponed. So finally, I am pleased to welcome you to Seoul. So I appreciate all our sympathy, but I urge you not to come to Seoul out of sympathy, but come to enjoy the meeting and everything the city offers you.
Yeah,
Oh, I was
go
just
ahead.
going to mention that I have, I think, a keychain that I got from the local organizing committee back at the 2017 meeting, getting us excited for OHBM Korea in 2018. So I have a Korea 2018 keychain, but unfortunately that one didn't happen. But I guess I'll have to bring that one this year for 2024. I'm really excited. We're finally making it.
Yeah, no, actually I've been to Seoul twice, and it's just an amazing city. It's really you feel perfectly safe. It's super interesting. It's different, but you feel it's safe and super, and everything is a little bit different, and the city's huge.
Mm,
I remember going up there's a tower actually in a park that you go
yes.
up and you kind of overview the city, and it's just that it's like it makes it's I think it's at least looked like it was like two or three times the size of New York as far as, but it's all very, you get the impression it's not really a gritty city. It's sort of like very clean and very orderly and very nice. And so is there anything about the venue or the area where the venue is that's I mean, it seems like it's right downtown, right? There's a river running through Seoul and it's
Mhm,
kind of near
mhm.
there. Is there anything that you would want to mention that's could
Okay.
be
Actually, frankly speaking, I'm a resident, so I do not much about Seoul,
okay.
more than tourist. So
Okay, all right.
actually, recently I have enjoyed discovering fascinating aspect of Seoul through YouTube, shared by the growing numbers of visitors. They share a lot of fun things about Seoul. So I think this is the same to every resident. That is similar to me. So I have heard about K-pop, K-movie, Taekwondo, e-games, and there are many things in Seoul. And but what I can tell you about Seoul is that the Seoul's most important aspect is not always visible. So sometimes it is hidden. So we already know that when we travel a new city, then natural environment and its historical context tells a lot about the city. So to enjoy K culture, K movie, and to understand it better, you need to be here. So when you come, please look beyond what's immediately visible. So look for what's hidden and immerse yourself in. So that's what I would suggest to you to live, how to be a Seoul citizen.
All right. I mean, that's a perfect introduction to that. And yeah, I do remember how OHPM had to pivot pretty quickly when political tensions got a little bit too much. They were worried about lack of attendance, but it's funny because I remember when I went there at the time the meeting was supposed to happen. There was a Korean brain mapping meeting, and I think everyone in Seoul was like, like this happens, and nobody really worries too much. So and there's always political tensions here and there, and you just you live your life. And so, but definitely it's less than, at least on the surface, than what it seemed then. So it's good. So why don't we start a little bit with Sofie talking a little bit about education. So you're the chair of the education committee. I remember I was, way back in Brighton. I remember being in charge of education. It was very informal. It was like we just decided, okay, this is your education chair, figure it out. And so we tried to plan. We basically planned a whole meeting, like in the morning, like parallel symposia, because they didn't want to have parallel sessions back then. But at least education could get around that and have parallel sessions, and then the morning education classes. And it's sort of it's been somewhat preserved. They changed the morning symposia to the meeting symposia, but then morning sessions are there. So how often did you interface with your education committee? How did you pick them? How is the education sessions going? That's the first day of the meeting.
Well, they're going in the sense that they're definitely happening, and they will be great. So in that sense, it's all set up, right? Like in OHBM, you always have the past and future chair also like helping you a lot. So shout out to Jeanette Munford and Jean Chen. But the educational committee is also made up of other people, 10, 12 people that come together twice or thrice. So it's not so often. So like I think the first part is like, and this is also a shout out generally for OHBM, like all these abstracts, all these symposia, all these educational sessions, they need to be rated or peer reviewed, if you may, and looked at and ranked. And this costs obviously a lot of time, and this is always around Christmas. Like we all know, end of year everybody's busy, but like many people within our community also like check out all the science and rank it from 0 to 5. But anyway, this is also done for the educational committee. And then we come together and we take like average ranking, or at least I did it. Like everybody can kind of also do it a little bit they prefer, right? But I thought it was fair to look at the rankings and the topics and then make sure that not two topics are there that do exactly the same, right? Because sometimes deep learning or social cognition, whatever, like some topic is twice, and then we try to also like pick the one that is most relevant into different categories and also fits the general vibe. And there we also try to keep in mind like diversity of the speakers and also topics. That was one thing. And the other thing that we also discussed or was like legacy educational things like anatomy, for example, or like kind of like these essential things that you have to know, or that as a brain mapper you kind of want to dig into, like brain mapping 101 or like this thing. And then while discussing we also came, we actually need more evaluations, that we also see who likes what, so we can also maybe build like this OHBM 101 either digitally. And there also I need to shout out to Stephanie Forko and also the ComCon, who have really helped to put like a lot of videos already on YouTube from past years. And this could then ideally be like, also a way to kind of educate yourself, especially, well, I need to educate myself and I'm a group leader, but many other people also. And so not, we're all students here. So yeah, this is kind of how we set it up. And it was like two-hour meetings that we kind of made these decisions and rankings. Yeah, then we try to be fair and make it like worthwhile for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, there's right. There's 4 full day courses, and you can go in between, you can go back and forth and whatever, but and there's like, it looks
No,
like
no.
there's, you can't,
No, you can. Sorry, it was a joke. You can walk around. Sorry, it's maybe not good to make a.
It's hard
No, no.
because sometimes it's hard because there's not a precise schedule, but still, I remember, when I go into, you sometimes say, okay, I want to see this, and you try to estimate when what is happening, but yeah, no, it's okay. I'm glad they didn't restrict that. You can, it's a smorgasbord
Free
of
movement allowed. Great.
and there's like 6 half day courses. And you're right. There's some that are legacy, like you said. Like, it's always important to know anatomy. Like, it looks like that's the tractometry one,
Yeah.
or neuroanatomy and its impact instructional, like in memory of Carl Zillis, who, And there's other ones that are brand new. I mean, I don't know if you want to highlight anything in particular that caught your attention? I know that we're involved in one, and communicating neuroscience across people's languages and culture. It's all about communication.
Yeah, I can highlight maybe that one
Yeah.
in particular, like if I may, like also with your podcast, and we had some discussion about this, whether this is like worthy of educating brain mappers for, because who cares, right? No, but then again, then we said, yeah, we should care about it because communicating is key, right? And it's not so easy. And I think a lot of people would love to know how to better communicate, and also to maybe understand like maybe the effort it takes you to host this cool podcast, right? Like it is not
Yeah.
something you do in between, right? It's also a science. And I think, yeah, they're also this we thought is also maybe relevant in terms of diversity and like inclusivity, to know better how to reach the right audiences, or like how to develop this theory of mind also for others to understand what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Especially in this very interdisciplinary field where we all work in, right? And I think another course is like, for example, global open science electrophysiology, that we also picked and put in, because also here we think it's very relevant. And I think MRI is a very, you have to like to buy a machine, it's very expensive, right? So in order to open up the community also for different ways of imaging the brain or mapping the brain, I think this is also very relevant. And I think in the courses ultimately we also have a bit what you said earlier, this combination of methods and application, to kind of have both sides, and also this clinical relevance. So to really, like, how to say, like serve the whole wave of brain mapping, from getting the data to like analyzing and communicating. So yeah, that there's for everybody something, and ideally you can mix and match a bit between what you want to learn. And yeah, and ideally people like upload their videos beforehand so we can put it online, and even if you miss it, you can watch it later. And yeah, I always feel a bit like, how to say, overwhelmed in a way. Like you want to be everywhere at the same time, right? And also have ice cream with your friends in a tower in Seoul at the same time, right? And I think this is always the struggle that we all have at OHBM, right? Like the science minds, the culture minds, the party minds. So yeah, I think therefore the YouTube and also the breadth of the program hopefully allows to kind of have it all.
Yeah, no, actually, I think you're right. The breadth is good. And I think that one question that people have, I don't know if it's happening or not, and how much of these lectures are being recorded. I mean, is it being recorded and uploaded to YouTube, or and how much of it, like when you talk about inclusivity, I know there's always been an ongoing discussion of the meeting itself, of being live streamed, or some aspects of it being recorded. Do you know how if these will be recorded?
Yes, we had a lot of discussion about this. The thing is that recording is not so easy. There's a lot of reasons why some people don't make it last minute, canceled flight, family obligation, and also to hire these people on site. It's like really everything costs money, right? Also, sometimes your recording is just much better if you sit in front of your laptop and talk through your presentation once. That is also why, like, I see there's pros and cons of everything, but for this year, we would really encourage people to upload their talks ahead of time so that it can be put on YouTube, because we think this is the most sustainable solution for everybody in terms of costs and time, and also quality of the
Yeah.
presentation. And, like, I know it's annoying to talk to yourself on your laptop, but think about all these brain mappers that would really love you for it, right? And so yeah, we hope this works, and yeah, I can only really encourage people to do so. But
Okay, but still, like you said, that might even be better. And having, encouraging people to pre-record as much as possible, then pushing that all up. That's perfect. Yeah.
To
Yeah.
reemphasize something that Sophie said, is that we're very fortunate that we've had a lot of people, including Sophie and Stephanie, and people for years who have been pushing us to push as much of our content from across OHBM onto YouTube and make it publicly available. So we've started that now, and something that we've sort of termed the OHBM time machine. So all of our past content is slowly being uploaded onto YouTube. So it's no longer sort of paywalled within, the OHBM membership portal, but it's actually broadly available. So this is a really cool opportunity, not only for you to present educational content to the people in your session, but also to sort of live on it and make some contribution to the entire field for a long, long time.
Yeah.
yeah, and maybe one other thing to add, like we're trying also this educational round to get evaluations, or maybe I've already mentioned it, like that people give feedback in terms of if they liked it a lot and who liked it, so that we kind of know, these are kind of legacy, like educational sessions that people really want to know more about, and this is maybe something that is relevant but more for a niche audience, or to get a better gist also of what the audience want, although it's always a mixture of giving the audience what they need versus like our own philosophy about what is relevant and to push the boundaries a bit. So
Yeah, that's great. And you're right. There always is this tension of like, you try to represent, what the field wants as much as possible, but at the same time, as a leadership, you try to sort of push the boundaries as much as possible too. So, yeah, it's the good creative tension there. And also, do you ever decide like one thing I've often wondered about, and it always happens where if you have an education session, you have like you try to emphasize, make it as didactic as possible, but people like to treat it as a symposium and put in their latest stuff. And so, how do you ever move sessions around, like, oh, that should be a symposium rather than an education session, or vice versa, or do you just instruct them to like try to make it as didactic as possible, and not necessarily just have all your latest stuff you just want to show? So
yeah, that's a very good point. So we had sometimes that topics had a certain overlap between symposia and educational sessions. So there we do try to coordinate so that it's not like the same topic gets repeatedly, although, some topics differ, like really they should be said many, many times, right? So we do try to balance this, but yeah, this is also up to the responsibility of every person doing these educational sessions to make sure that everybody can tag along and that they make a Jupyter notebooks or like scripts. So yeah, and even like a dream scenario is people like building a website, and that you can even do some exercise later, or you can give it to your students at home and say, hey, if you want to learn trigonometry, go to this website, here are some tutorials, then you know the basics by the experts. But of course we all have busy lives, right? And this is all like to some extent also we need to rely on the goodwill of people, that they want others to learn things. I think we do, or I don't think, like the rating of the educational session is also partly based on this like educational element, right? So do they have a fair plan how to teach something, or is this just like a different shot at another way to talk about how awesome your group is, or so
right,
uh,
right.
it's always a balance, right? And I think different fields have also different ways of like levels of explanation needed and also possible within
Yeah,
the time frame. But yeah, it's a good point. Like maybe I can still like send a reminder to everybody with an
yeah,
educational system, say, hey, by the way, bring something to clay a brain, or I don't know, like let people do something, and not only passively listen. But
yeah,
As
yeah.
an organizer of one of the educational courses, so the communicating science one was led by ComCom, and it's featuring some people on ComCom, including Peter talking about podcasting, and Johan Yi will be doing a hands-on tutorial about visualization. But we got really good guidelines from the educational committee ahead of time about what makes a good session. So about having these sorts of hands-on moments, audience interactions, that's a key part. And so we sort of structured our proposal to make sure that we had those elements in it. We got the buy-in from our presenters to do that as much as possible. And also having some guidelines about who we have presenting. And so while ComCom sort of led our specific proposal, which is going to be a half-day session, we made sure to include people from other expert groups. So we have like Brain Art SIG involved. We have a diversity and inclusivity committee involved, talking about communication across cultures and languages, and people from all sorts of different geographic regions. And so we got good guidelines from educational committee. So it's been really helpful for us to structure it from the get-go in a way that is as broadly reaching and effective as possible. So thanks, Sofie.
It's good to also keep this in mind, like those people that want to set up educational session next year, like look at the guidelines. Like I also feel that sometimes your idea and the educational idea is brilliant, right? But maybe you forgot to kind of highlight how you will implement the hands-on side, or and these things are really important to us. Like it's not only the topic that matters, but also the implementation, and there we try also to be sure that people know what we expect, right? Not that people miss out on an opportunity because they kind of misinterpreted this. And I think this is also has improved with OHBM, that it's much clearer, like what would consist a good educational session or a good symposium, like in terms of the values that we share, in terms of diversity of like education background and any form of diversity. So happy that it
Yeah,
helped you.
yeah, definitely people should know that they can just submit, an application to the education session. It's not, there's nothing, the process is extremely is transparent. It's, evaluated by the committee, which is, I think they have a certain a term of maybe a year or two, or maybe you reform the committee every year. I'm not sure exactly, but either way, there is no like, oh well, that one they always get this sort of thing, or you have to know someone or like that. There's nothing like that.
No, we also try to, like, it's a small community, right? So people that have conflict of interest go out of the room with
Yeah.
decisions. Not that wouldn't be good, right? And I think a lot of it is based on the rating of like multiple, at least three raters. So mostly 4 to 5, and
So also, just to back up a little bit, I mean, when we were talking about having a virtual version and just, it's good to have it ahead of time. I think that's the one feedback I got. Like people, after COVID, people thought, oh, it would be great just now to have hybrid meetings, and stream in real time. But as you mentioned, it's super, I mean, we found, it's super, super hard. It's super expensive and it's really hard logistically and it never really quite works out. And so, yes, we want to be as inclusive as possible, but the best solution probably is, like you said, record ahead of time and upload. It's not have some sort of a virtual platform that people can log in that during that time. It's just so expensive. So, yeah,
yeah, and also difficult. Like
and
I
difficult.
see the Otto subtitle made it hybrid meetings, and I think to some extent it also like shows like a hybrid is very difficult, right? And often it can be convenient, but then it's very costly, and in the end, it's also a community effort to make sure that your stuff is available online, right? And
Yeah. All right.
Hopefully, we do have people in the community who are pushing for some, if we can't have the events, the main annual meeting be hybrid, or at least not hybrid every year, pushing for some events throughout the year that are virtual forward. And so hopefully those can pull in more people throughout the year, keep people engaged, and then also reach more people who aren't always able to travel around the world for this conference.
Yeah. And that's one really positive change I find in OHBM. It's not just the meeting. It's all ongoing during the year. There's these things that happen, these symposia, these lectures, whatever. So that's, and more of that is growing. I think that's a really great thing. Okay, so now let's talk about. We'll get to the communications committee, but I just wanted to talk about the rest of the meeting a little bit. I know that Stephanie Forkel couldn't make it, and she was the chair of the program committee. I don't know if, and you've probably were tangentially involved in that as well. I mean, everyone sort of overlaps a little bit. Is there anything in particular, like, for instance, the program committee is, you have this combination of oral sessions, which are proffered papers that, the abstracts are come in and there's several of them in each session that lasts like, an hour and 15 minutes. And then there's symposia, and as well, which is sort of like a more of a package that's organized by the symposia leader. And those are, it seems like those are go through the same vetting process as like the education courses as well. Is there, I'm looking, and usually we reserve one symposia for the local organizers. Is that true? Or is that, did we do that do you have a local organizer? Might as well emphasize that since you're here. Do you have a
Okay.
local organizer committee symposia?
Yes, actually, we have one symposia for academics and one for the public. So because the public actually started from the last meeting, so we try to continue the public lecture to broaden the neuroimaging, research area to the public. So we still try to. And the academic symposium we prepared is that the title is Roadmap for Clinical Translation of Neuroimaging. So we focus on how advanced neuroimaging can contribute to the clinical field. That is one of our maybe role of OHBM. So that's what we are trying to focus on.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many, it's like that's great. So, and also I love I think the public lecture, that's something I forgot to put in my notes, is that, and that's something that's starting up more and more, is that there's a public outreach, a local public outreach that's OHBM provides, which is really nice, Okay, so, and will that be in Korean or will it be in English?
Actually, the title of the public lecture is Unlocking the Wonders of the Brain: Journey into the World of Neuroimaging Research. So half speakers Korean, half speakers outside abroad. So we are trying to provide written captions.
Okay.
So it may not be a problem.
Okay, great. So right, yeah, and I also noticed one, there's obviously for the one of the sponsors, there's a lunch symposia that's basically you get a free lunch if you sit to the lecture. It's GE is offering that, and yeah, the oral sessions look great. I mean, there's 5 parallel sessions every single one in the morning, or actually one per day for the oral sessions, and symposia, there's usually 2 a day, except for, yeah, 2 a day about, and they look great. They cover everything. And actually, it's really nice as I look at this, it looks like they're very much on, I love how the focus of the topics of the field change. Like there's one, there's to regress out or not, an update on the fMRI global signal debate. That's a great thing to talk about. It's like all these little things that are sort of levers, that are windows into sort of deeper understanding of the whole, wider issues. Yeah. So the keynotes, we have typically the tradition is to have one Talairach lecture, which is the big lecture. And this was Zarin Akanda. What can chimpanzees tell us about human leadership? A little bit of interference there. That's okay. So how is the Talairach? I always felt that was really a tough one. And usually the local organizers have a say. How is it decided? I mean, I know from my experience on committees, it's like basically, it's a bunch of people sitting there and somebody throws out an idea. They say, hey, that's pretty good, or maybe not. And what about this person? And, it's some combination of whether it's relevant, whether they can make it. You know, was anyone involved in the decision on? Okay, Sofie, how did that come about?
I think like beforehand already committee members and general like can post some suggestions based on the Talairach lecture, and here the general idea is to do somebody that is a little bit outside of the box but can never be like inspirational, right? So the idea is actually to pick somebody that is not from our field. And there I think we also like, given that OHBM has this geographic diversity concept, right, where we have the different world zones, so to say, like vertically placed on the planet, we're also wanted to kind of like get somebody from the Asian Pacific realms. And then like we had a couple of names already pre-listed where different people within the program committee were already actively thinking about who could be a fitting candidate here. And then we have a discussion on like people rank it a bit in the meeting or beforehand. And we discussed like, have we already heard them as a speaker? Like, are they also good in, like, one thing is to talk for people that you know, right? And that know what you're doing. But it's another gift to kind of explain the relevance of your work for people that do something else, right? So we really want somebody that can build these bridges and is also open for new perspectives and confident enough to make it clear for us, or for me, stupid brain research, to see the relevance, right, for us. So I think then like it's a bit discussed, like, oh, is this a good speaker or not, and does it meet also general like the gist of what we want to, how we want to come across as a community. So also here I think Talairach is not a per se that we grade, right? It's not a ranking. So it's different than oral sessions and symposia or educational session, but also here there's a list, and people like vote on different options, and then
Okay, and then of course the keynotes are prominent sort of mid-career people in the field. Emily Finn, Sanji Kim, that's great. A local person who actually just recently won the ISMRM gold medal. So he does great work. Emma Burrows, Max Shine, who's been leading the field with many, many different things that I'm aware of, and Luis Concha, Nicola Palermo, and Lucia Meloni. So
I was just going to say, as an outsider, I wasn't involved in selecting or voting for any of these, but with ComCom, we help promote some of these and get to interact with the speakers. And then also as an OHBM attendee for 8 or 9 years, I do love how much the focus is on, really on these Talairach and keynote lectures on pushing the boundaries. So what's going on that's expert in the field, but that's also pushing us somewhere a little bit new. So I really like that there's this cognizant effort to pull in people maybe a little bit outside our comfort zones to show us, like last year, we had, I think, Hung Zhang from the Allen Brain Institute talking about cell types and neural populations. And that's something a little bit outside the comfort zone for a lot of human brain mappers, a different way to think, but it really expanded, at least for me and the people I talk to, how we think about the human brain. And so I'm really excited this year for both thinking about behavior and leadership with the Talairach Lecture, and then also across the board with the keynotes, pushing in all sorts of different directions and seeing who's really leading the field and what new directions we're going in.
Yeah, the YouTube, like I think it's also great that you do this like pre-interviews, so those people with a long flight ahead of them, they can kind of like, like zoom in and listen to this for 8 hours and like be like totally prepared, right? Like
that's a great
Yeah,
idea. It's available before the meeting, and so yeah, you could just
yeah, and we do have, we can talk a little bit more about it later, but that's one thing ComCom has been doing for a few years is interviews with the keynote speakers so that people can sort of be prepared and hear a little bit about and get excited about the talks coming up. And recently we've turned some of those into podcasts and video interviews too. So yeah, we should have, at least a few hours worth of content for the long flight to Seoul for many people. So you can sort of tune in and learn a little bit about each of our speakers before you get there.
no, that's
yes.
I wanted to watch Bridgerton, but now I'm like, it's like between a romantic movie and more content. So I think I'll go
Oh,
for
I
the Bridgerton.
know.
But, um,
I think they're neck and neck in terms of viewership ratings right now globally. So we'll see. Maybe you watching it will push the keynote
no,
interviews ahead.
yeah, let's see, or I do a mix of them, like at the same time, like one ear Bridgerton, other ear Brain, and see what comes.
That'd be an interesting mix. That's definitely that's great. Okay, that's yeah, no, that's actually great. And we'll I mean other content. So when they upload ahead of time, even the other speakers, like the speakers for their talks, will that be available before the meeting, or will that be only available after the meeting? Like for instance, if for education or whatever.
That's a good question. Personally, I would say we would like allow the people to make their appearance live, right? Not to do any spoilers of maybe secret cool work, and but like not to be like too exclusive, right? But there is some value in having it first on site. But it's a good point. I will note it down and also ask. And it's also always tricky, right? Like recording, it also asks a lot from somebody that needs to do other stuff as well, right? And often, like we're all human, so you also don't want to shame that one person that was busy with other things. And then you see like everybody has their stuff in order, but Sofie Valk obviously is not present on YouTube because she's a mess, right? Like this is also what we want to avoid, right? We don't want to do naming and shaming in
Yeah.
that sense. So yeah, like everybody can only give what they can, and like does it voluntarily, right? So
That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it's right. People are gonna right, and that's always tricky to handle appropriately. But yeah, no, and actually I do think that people probably do want to give the live one first and then just have that one there. So yeah, that's so much work, but it's still worth doing. And so what about and also I know that going out throughout the meeting. I mean, this is one thing that sort of has expanded a little bit is that you have roundtables, social events, special events, and awards. And so why don't we just first quickly cover and also of course poster sessions. Poster sessions are huge. They were. I think the posters will they be up the entire meeting, or will be some rotation? They'll be up the
I
entire
think
meeting.
so.
And then there's sessions obviously from like 2-hour sessions each day in the afternoon. That was an attempt to not make it overlap with the talks. So that's good too. But then of course they're up and you can, are they physical posters or electronic posters or
Physical.
physical? And I think that's the best thing. There's other meetings that have gone to some hybrid or just electronic, which I think we haven't yet figured that out for doing that. So I think it's great. I love physical posters, just to walk through the aisles looking at them, and I prefer to look at them when there's no one there. So it's great that they're always up. And so okay, and also like the round tables. I mean, I noticed that's something that kind of struck me this year, is that a few years ago there was maybe one or two round tables or a few, and now there's 20 roundtables, so Sofie or Kevin, have you been part, or even anyone, have you been part of the planning of the roundtables or the acceptance of the roundtables? And I noticed there's an open science roundtable, OSR, that's like every day. Like, there's roundtable, and I'm not sure exactly what that is. So if I don't know if you can talk about the roundtables or not, but if you were part of the planning of that.
There's also Neurosalience live. That's you
Yep.
then having lunch
Yeah,
with.
Peter, you're leading one of these.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
leading one of them, right?
Tell us more about this one.
Yeah. Well, I know that one. And they call it a round table, although it's
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 just
interesting.
there.
Maybe it's a category. Yeah, it's there. It's a Neurosalience will be a live panel with 5 experts in the field, just talking about general questions of where the field's going. So, and that's called a round table, but I don't think you have to sit at any round tables, but it's just in an audience, and there'll be a panel. So
Yeah, I think the format is one that people really like because it's not so much these like sequential talks. It really encourages more conversation between people who are presenting. And so I think the format has really gotten a lot of popularity, especially at the conference. So I think instead of only submitting something to be a symposium, I don't know when it was instituted, but being able to propose something as a roundtable to sort of encourage this discussion among presenters and also pull in audience questions and comments as well. So I really like that overall that these roundtables are happening. Maybe Sophie could talk more from her history with the Open Science SIG, but I know that the Open Science Room is something that's been going on for a long time. And the cool thing about the Open Science Room is it's very open to just community-driven content. So people who
that's
want to
awesome.
give a talk or organize a roundtable can do it in that room, and they reserve some space and time for that to happen throughout the conference. So you can sort of set things up as you go. But I think something that's happened more recently in the past, maybe this year or the past few years, is ahead of time planning a few of these in time so that they can actually get on the schedule. So I think these OSR sessions are things that were happening, but weren't maybe planned ahead enough in advance or weren't communicated well enough to get on the actual official schedule. So now finally they're on the schedule so that the Open Science Room activities are sort of broadly available and visible to people who are just looking at the normal schedule instead of only the OSR schedule.
Yeah, and I think this is also like a nice way, like if you're a bit shy, you haven't been to OHBM, you can just drop in and be first a bit at the wall and then see a bit what happens and then also like participate. And this is also one of the more active elements, right? Where you can just ask questions or learn and interact a bit more. So here it's even more casual. And I think also one of the other roundtables that I would also like shout out to is the mentor lunch with mentors of the student and postdoc SIG, which is also now a returning event. And that's also like a great opportunity where like students and mentors come together and talk about challenges, opportunities, like how is it to be on the other side, right? And I think that is also like, yeah, and it's always a lot of work to organize this, and it comes really from the community how to set this up, and it's very low key, right? And you can just drop in and out if you don't like it. Like it's very like casual, right? And usually you don't want to leave because it's so beautiful, and you chat about the brain and a bit about Bridgerton, and then so it has something for everybody, and I think
That's great. I mean, I totally agree. I think this is a really nice intermediate sort of thing between the formal sessions and just meeting people in the hallway. It's like a place to meet where you just sort of talk. It's great. I love how you put it that way. So it's yeah. Um, and there's so many, right? There's the open science room, which is every day and several times a day. There's Neurosalience Live. There's Brain Mappers of Trial, the Korean session,
The open science room will also, so although the meeting overall won't be live streamed, the open science room will be live streamed, supported by the Open Science SIG. So that's something that even people who aren't attending in person will at least be able to tune into what's going on in the open science room through Crowdcast. So take a
Oh,
look at
cool.
the Open Science SIG for some details on that. And then I
That's
also
great.
wanted to highlight the Sustainability and Environmental Action SIG. They always host another roundtable lunch event where they meet up and try to find a good sustainable lunch option so that people can chat and talk about sustainability and environmental action in the context of these big international meetings and these very weighty analyses that we're doing. How can we do them in the most sustainable and responsible way?
Yeah, those are topics that keep on growing and become more and more relevant over time. Right. There's also a women faculty SIG in one of the open science rooms as well. Yeah, so many of these things sort of like are very much at the cutting edge of the issues that are just emerging and are being discussed more. And also, of course, there's the brain hack, which is basically a place where people go and come up with projects and work together all throughout the meeting. Some people, I'm always amazed with the whole brain hack culture. There are people who go to OHBM just to sit in that room the entire time and do programming with other people. It's amazing and it's great.
And that's another event that's happening a few days before even the educational session is the Brain Hack Hackathon. I know they're open for registration for this year. And again, you can either attend in person. There's also a virtual component for the Brain Hack this year. So again, supported by the Open Science SIG. So take a look at that, get involved. And it's open to experienced coders, hackers, but also people who don't know what they're doing but are just interested. There's a lot of educational elements to that, to the Brain Hack too. There's a whole training track of getting people familiar with software and visualizations and annotating your code and writing good documentation. All of those are important contributions.
And also just for completeness, special events. It looks like there's a kids activity, Brain Art for Scientists of the Future. And of course, there's the award ceremony. There's a ton of awards. And so do you know what the kids, Brain Art for the Scientists of the Future? So it's, is there like, oh yeah, so go ahead.
DIC?
Yeah.
Diversity Inclusive. Yeah, actually, one of our LOC members are working on that, and we are trying to advertise to Korean children's. I remember that they already submitted a YouTube program to pre-educate them, and also they are trying to teach something and then mentoring the children about the scientific issue, brain mapping, and probably they want to publish some paper, Children Frontiers in, I don't exactly remember name,
Oh,
but
cool.
yeah,
Oh, that's
Frontiers and Young Minds. Yeah, it's a really
probably
cool endeavor. Yeah.
it's very nice.
that's
Yeah.
that is cool. That is cool. Okay, and also like the awards. So I noticed there's been early on there were no, well, there was one award. There was like a Young Investigator Award or now it's called the Early Career Award, and now the awards have grown substantially. There's everything from it's important even to list them. There'll be an award ceremony on Tuesday, 10:30 to 11, half hour. Diversity and Inclusivity Champion Award. There's Education and Neuroimaging Award, Early Career Investigator Award, Fellow of OHBM, which is not, which is it could be up to like as many people as get elected for each year. The Glass Brain Award. It's sort of like a career achievement sort of thing. The Carl Zillis Award in Integrative Neuroscience, the Mentor Award, Open Science Award, Replication Award, and Sustainability Awards. So these are all, and looks like most come with $2,500 cash prizes, except the Glass Brain Award, which probably they don't need that.
It's a cool statue though.
Yeah, it's a really cool statue. It's probably worth $2,500, but
You can sell
really,
it.
yeah,
You really need money. But
that's right. It's a really nice statue to have on your desk or something. Also, just for completeness, we have the social events. Of course, there's a welcome reception. It's somewhere between the education sessions and then there's a short period of time, and then you have the you have the opening ceremonies and then the welcome reception. So, and then were you at all part of the planning for the, I mean, maybe the local organizing committee as well, the Monday night social and gala and also the club night? Who was involved in that?
Actually, the club night is going to be held in the kind of settle. The name is Sebit Island in the river Han River. Very, very nice during the night time. So you can enjoy the Han River, very big river, and you can enjoy also the night view. And the nice thing is that even though Seoul is a very crowded city, and also, we are very upset about the noise, but the club night location is kind of separate from the general houses, so you can do whatever you want to do. It's one thing, and
Okay.
also we are trying to maybe not us, but the actual OHBM office want to try how to make easy accessible to that area, a kind of a little bit some island. So that's why we are trying to provide some transportation. So that's one
Okay.
thing
Oh, that's
about
good.
the club night, and we are trying to plan to provide some opening ceremony about Korean cultural events, but the name is a kind of secret. So in the right place, you can enjoy the Korean cultural event, and after then there may be a Korean or half mixture Korean Western mixture food will be provided as a finger food.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I know.
All right. All right.
Mm.
That sounds great. And so let's briefly, quickly, since Kevin's here, just to talk a little bit about the ComCom. I mean, there's so many committees, and I don't even have a list here, but that's one thing that I should have gone over. But that's more of the general OHBM. There's so many committees that are represented and that have meetings and public meeting and for the meeting. But since you're here, we could briefly mention ComCom. I mean, I'm biased because I really do think that probably the fundamental thing in science is communicating it, and it's meaningless unless it's communicated effectively and well. And so, and ComCom does so many things. You have a great new website. I don't know, Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about ComCom?
Yeah, so ComCom Communications Committee is really tasked with communicating within the organization, so making sure everybody is informed about what's happening across the organization, and then also sharing all the cool stuff happening within the brain mapping community with people outside of the brain mapping community who it may be relevant to. So we have a blog. That's where it all got started in 2015, 2016, doing interviews and talking about hot topics and brain mapping. We added in some what used to be called lay media pieces. So these were written for general audiences and we had blog pieces about, again, like hot topic issues, but written for a more general audience. So those got picked up by HuffPost and PLOS blog and some other venues.
Well, that's
Recently,
great.
those have turned into something we're calling Brain Bites. So Alex Albury on our team has really spearheaded this. So we're focusing on sort of translating research papers into sort of understandable, more broadly accessible summaries. So we have been working on those for the past year, and we're doing some of those actually for the keynote speakers this year. So, there are some key papers from our keynote speakers that people on our team are writing in more accessible ways, just to make sure that people who may not be in that field exactly can get as much out of them as they can. And then we also have, of course, the podcast, which you're listening to or watching right now, which Peter really spearheaded, but it's been a team effort keeping it running. Farouk Golban is the current team lead and is doing an awesome job incorporating new technology and getting new people involved in it. So beyond that, yeah, we have our new website. Sin Kim, who is our secretary, really helped us with that, as well as Alfie Weirin, who's our going to be the next chair. Recently, we've been sending out email digests every month, which sort of bring together all the things happening across the organization, across the different SIGs and committees, some deadlines for the annual meeting coming up, what's happening in Aperture Neuro, the job board, and kind of just trying to bring them all into one place so that our members can come to one place each month and see like, okay, what's happening? or what events are coming up hosted by SIGs or committees, what virtual workshops, what happened last month, what came out that I can read about. So we're always sort of pushing and trying to reach OHBM members in new ways and also make information accessible to more people, either trainees within our field or people who may not be familiar with specific fields or those who are outside of the organization.
Okay. And also, of course, you're always trying to if any member of the community feels they are good writers, communicators, want to get involved, they should contact you or just
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be making a big recruiting push in the summer and fall. And it's not only if you're good at it, but if you want to be
Yeah.
good at it
Right.
and just want some practice.
Yeah.
So we made a push this year, sort of like Sophie mentioned, since we're the conference this year is in Korea and next year is in Australia. We're trying to make a push for geographic diversity. So we've brought on some new members from the side of the globe that OHBM members often don't join committees from because of time zone reasons or anything. So we're really trying to be cognizant of that and get new voices and new active membership from those
Yeah.
regions. And it's been successful so far. So we're really
That's
excited about it.
Yeah, it's growing like all these aspects that they're growing rapidly, and there's a lot of work being put into it. I mean, the podcast itself is just we do this part, but then there's the whole production, which is a lot of work. And certainly writing these blog posts are they take real time, and we're all busy with other things, but we all make it happen. So it's just great. It's just great. And it's like this meeting itself. I mean, we're all none of us are really being paid for this, and it's except for the people, the company putting on the meeting. Beth Slater has been heading that up, and it's been. You have to mention her and all of her team, because that's now it wouldn't be possible without them, and they're doing an amazing job. So, is there anything else that anyone else wants to?
Steph wrote me one thing, which is maybe good for the long sleepers, is that the program starts at 9 a.m. instead of the traditional 8 a.m. So in terms of social, like the night can be a little bit longer for some people, or other people can sleep longer or go for a run in the morning.
Thank you, Stephanie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
programming committee, for starting it at 9.
Thank you, Dr. Forkel. And also, a shout out also to the sponsors, right? I think it's always, such meetings don't come for free, as we know, paying the bill also ourselves going there. So, and generally, like, shout out to all the committees, right? Like, knowing like how much time goes into it, volunteering. I can only say for myself, it has been a great opportunity. Like, I've been in a couple of SIGs and gotten to know amazing people, and now like it's like I can only recommend it to everybody. Don't be afraid, just add your hand and participate, because it gives you also different, like, how to say, you learn different things about the brain if you also are part of the back end of organizing such a meeting and showing the initiative, right? And without it wouldn't be possible. And also with, of course, the office sitting in the office and doing their professional work. But I think it's always the balance also between the community and for this, it's like, it's super cool to see how, I can only advertise this and thank
Yeah.
everybody for making this happen. No, and don't be too sad if things don't go the way you expected, but be open to surprise. And I hope the coffee is good. That's that's maybe my
Yeah, so they do have a coffee throughout the meeting, or is it just for the
coffee
education?
is actually part of the agenda, so you can
Oh,
click it. But it's I don't know what that means, but there should be.
yeah, actually, just very, very quickly. I like how the agendas, that website. If you say, sometimes meetings like to have a program, a schedule at a glance, and they're like, oh, because initially that was my reaction, like, where's the schedule? I don't see the schedule. But in fact, it's sort of a really nice, clever way of looking at the whole schedule if you want, but then you could select what you want to look for on the left, and then it will just put it in sequential order. So I think really nice design for that layout. So if you want to do anything, and some people try to have meeting planners, we don't, but but this is, I think, really easily navigated. So it's good.
I just go with the flow and
Yeah.
and hope to be there where I have to be. But
You're right. You're right. At some point in the meeting, you're just walking around and you see people, and then you learn more just talking to a friend that you haven't talked to in a while than you would by going to a session. So that's the beauty of these in-person meetings still. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hae-Jeong. Thank you, Sofie. And also thank you, Kevin. We'll see you at OHBM. And just a reminder, the dates are, it's in Seoul, and it's between June 24th and June 27th of this year. So,
Woohoo.
all right.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Neurosalience is brought to you by Organization for Human Brain Mapping. This week's episode is produced by Shiqian Michelle Lee and Ömer Faruk Gülban.